They say the smell of burning flesh never leaves you once you've experienced it in war. What they don't tell you is how satisfying it becomes when it's the right people burning. The words echoed in the cold silence of my car at 2 in the morning. I was driving, but not to any particular place. The streets were empty, the world a blur of streetlights and shadows outside the windows. The hum of the engine was the only thing keeping the quiet from suffocating me. I am Henry Carter, 42 years old, an Army veteran now working the graveyard shift at a warehouse. My world, the one I had built with a steady hand and a loving heart, had ended just a few hours ago. My hands, once trained to hold a rifle and now calloused from forklift controls, felt alien on the steering wheel, disconnected from the rage that still simmered in my gut. 6 hours earlier, my day had started with a quiet domestic joy. My shift was ending early, a rare and welcome surprise. I decided to make the most of it and surprise my wife, Sarah. For the past 3 years, our marriage had been a sanctuary. We were two people who had found quiet contentment in a world full of noise. We had been trying to start a family for the past 6 months, a shared goal that had deepened our bond. Sarah was a devoted housewife, the kind of woman who always had dinner ready, the house spotless, and a warm smile waiting for me at the end of the day. On a whim, I stopped at her favorite takeout place. I imagined her face, a mix of surprise and pure delight, as I walked through the door with her favorite meal. The picture in my mind was perfect. It was a lie. As I pulled up to our modest 2-story home, the first thing I noticed was a strange car parked half a block away, tucked discreetly behind a large oak tree. My military training, the constant low-level awareness of my surroundings, immediately flagged it as an anomaly, but my heart, still filled with the day's gentle purpose, dismissed it as a neighbor's guest. I got out of my truck, the takeout bag warm in my hand. As I approached the front door, I heard it, a low, rhythmic moaning. It was muffled but unmistakable. It was coming from the basement. My stomach clenched. It was not the sound of a TV show or a plumbing issue. It was a woman in the throes of pleasure. And then a man's voice, one I didn't recognize, whispered her name. Sarah. The anger that erupted within me was a violent, primal thing. My first instinct, honed by years of combat, was to storm down to the basement, to kick down the door and end both of them. My hands tightened into fists, the plastic bag of takeout crinkling under the pressure. Every fiber of my being screamed for immediate, brutal confrontation. But the other part of my mind, the strategic, cold, and calculating part that had kept me alive in 3 different tours, intervened. I pictured the immediate aftermath, the police, the interrogation, the court dates, the prison sentence. A long, pointless slide into a cage. My revenge would be hollow. It wouldn't bring me peace. It would only bring me ruin. That path was for impulsive men, not for a soldier who had learned to choose his battles. I quietly turned and walked back to my car, the takeout bag now feeling like a lead weight. I got in, started the engine, and drove away, not toward a destination, but away from a lie. I drove aimlessly for 2 hours, the initial white-hot rage gradually cooling into a chilling, methodical focus. My mind, once trained for warfare, was now formulating a new kind of mission. This one would require patience, precision, and perfect timing. By the time I returned, the strange car was gone. I found Sarah in the kitchen. Her cheeks were flushed, and her hair was slightly disheveled. She was scrubbing the countertops with an almost frantic energy, a physical manifestation of her guilt. She turned to me, a fake smile on her face, and started a lie about having taken a nap. Her eyes, usually so honest and kind, were now shifty, refusing to meet mine. I said nothing. I just walked over to her, placed the cold takeout on the counter, and leaned in to kiss her forehead. The taste of her lie, the scent of a stranger that I now knew lingered on her skin, was a sickening cocktail. I simply asked, "How was your day?" The question hung in the air, a silent judgment she didn't yet understand. That night, as Sarah slept peacefully beside me, her breathing steady and innocent, I stared at the ceiling. The illusion of our perfect life was shattered, but in its place a new reality had formed. It was a reality of betrayal, but also of a clear, strategic path forward. My military mind, once trained for conflict, was now formulating a plan that would ensure my justice, not just for the betrayal, but for the years of sacrifice I had made for my country, my family, and my honor. For the next 3 days, I lived a double life. On the surface, I was the same loving husband, the man who brought home flowers and asked about her day. But beneath the facade, I was a soldier on a recon mission. My years of training in reconnaissance were invaluable. I observed her movements, her subtle nervous habits, the way she clutched her phone, her eagerness for me to leave for work. I was a ghost in my own home, a silent observer gathering intelligence. The old Henry Carter would have confronted her, but the new one knew that intel was more valuable than a moment of rage. On Tuesday morning, Sarah left for her weekly grocery run. I waited 5 minutes after her car disappeared from view before driving to the nearest electronics store. My purchase was a simple one, but a key piece of my strategy, a motion-activated security camera with phone alerts. It was a small device, easy to conceal. I returned home and went straight to the basement, the very place where the foundation of my life had crumbled. I found a shadowy corner behind some old storage boxes and expertly concealed the camera. Years of setting up surveillance in hostile territory made the job easy. I tested the system, receiving a clear alert on my phone. The plan was in motion. The next day, I put the second phase of my plan into action. At the warehouse, I approached the 2 men I trusted implicitly, Dave and Tommy. Both were fellow veterans, brothers in arms from different wars. Dave, a burly man with a kind face, had gone through a nasty divorce after his wife cheated on him with his best friend. Tommy, a younger guy who had lost half his pension and custody of his kids to a cheating ex, had a grim understanding of betrayal. We met in the break room, the din of the warehouse muffling our conversation. I didn't reveal my plan. I only told them the essential truth. I found out my wife's been unfaithful. I'm thinking about what to do, but I may need a couple of witnesses to my whereabouts in the coming weeks. I'm going to need to be very visible. The brotherhood of veterans who have been betrayed runs deep. There was no hesitation, no judgment, just a shared understanding. They both nodded, their faces grim. "You got it, brother," Dave said. "I'll be your shadow," Tommy added. We established a simple system. I would make sure to be visible at work during my shifts, engaging in conversations, asking for help with tasks, and making sure my presence was noted and remembered. Dave and Tommy would pay special attention to corroborate my whereabouts if anyone ever asked. This was the first layer of my alibi. For the rest of the week, life with Sarah continued under a facade of marital bliss. We talked about baby names, planned a small vacation, and maintained the illusion of a happy couple. But beneath the surface, the rot of betrayal was growing. I noticed more signs. The way she checked her phone constantly, her eagerness for me to leave for work, the subtle changes in our physical intimacy. Each observation fueled my resolve and refined my emerging plan. I felt a cold satisfaction as I pieced together her routine. I was no longer a victim. I was a strategist, and she was the target. The week of normalcy ended on Friday. During my lunch break, my phone buzzed with a motion alert from the basement camera. Motion detected in basement, 2:47 p.m. I looked down at the notification, my heart pounding not with betrayal but with cold satisfaction. The trap was set, and my wife had just walked into it. The silence of the warehouse floor was deafening. My allies were in place, my surveillance was working, and my plan was solid. The final piece of the puzzle, the undeniable evidence, was now within my grasp. The notification arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, a silent buzz that announced the final piece of the puzzle. Motion detected in basement, 2:47 p.m. I was in the middle of a task on the warehouse floor, but my world narrowed to the small screen in my hand. I excused myself, claiming a family emergency, and stepped outside to view the live feed. The video began to play, and what I saw confirmed my worst fears and validated every ounce of my patience. Sarah was with a man I recognized, Brad, our neighbor from 2 streets over, whose wife was frequently away on business. The timestamp and the clear video evidence documented everything I needed. I watched, my face a mask of stone, as their betrayal unfolded on my phone screen. Instead of the hot rage I had initially felt, a strange and chilling calm settled over me. This was the proof, the undeniable justification for what was to come. I took multiple screenshots of keyframes and saved the video file to a secure cloud storage account. My training had taught me to secure evidence, to create a file that could not be denied or destroyed. I was no longer an emotional husband. I was an operative documenting a target's activities. I got back in my truck and drove home, calculating the timing and logistics. I didn't want to be there when they left. I saw Brad's car parked discreetly around the corner, and I waited in my own vehicle until I saw him emerge from the backyard. Only then did I drive around the block and return home. Sarah greeted me with a flustered energy. She had showered and changed clothes, but the evidence of the afternoon's activities lingered in her nervous energy and overly casual demeanor. Her attempt at normalcy was pathetic and only strengthened my resolve. That evening, as she watched television, I retreated to our bedroom closet. From a hidden compartment, I retrieved a military-grade flashbang grenade. It was a souvenir from my deployment, a device I had never reported missing, a contingency I had carried for years for a scenario I never imagined would unfold at home. I examined the device carefully, testing the pin mechanism and estimating the blast radius. My demolitions training kicked in. I considered the physics of the explosion, the gas dispersion patterns, and the structural vulnerabilities of our home. Over the next 2 days, my reconnaissance of my own home intensified. I studied the gas line layout, measured distances from potential ignition points to exit routes, and calculated the time needed for proper gas saturation. I researched house fire investigation protocols, learning how arson investigators determine accidental versus intentional blazes. My military experience in improvised explosives gave me confidence that my plan would appear completely accidental. I was an expert in creating chaos that looked like a tragic coincidence. I also meticulously prepared my alibi. I arranged to work overtime shifts that would place me definitively at the warehouse during the window when I expected Sarah's next encounter. I made sure to schedule collaborative tasks with Dave and Tommy that would require constant interaction and provide multiple witnesses to my presence. The three of us discussed the plan in coded language, with Dave and Tommy understanding they were providing cover for something significant without knowing the deadly specifics. Their trust was absolute. On Friday, Henry received another motion alert. This time, he studied the patterns more carefully. Brad arrived around 2:30 p.m. and typically stayed for about 2 hours. Sarah had clearly established a routine that coincided with Henry's work schedule. The predictability of their affair became the foundation for Henry's final calculations. His mind, once a battlefield, was now a chessboard, and every piece was in its correct place. Monday arrived with a typical routine. I kissed Sarah goodbye at 7 a.m., told her I loved her, and drove to the warehouse. I made sure Dave and Tommy saw me arrive early and spent the morning engaged in visible tasks. At 2:15 p.m., my phone buzzed with the expected motion alert from the basement camera. I checked the live feed and saw both Sarah and Brad entering the basement. This was the moment I had been waiting for. I told my supervisor I needed to run a quick errand, picking up parts from a supplier across town, a trip that typically took 45 minutes. Dave and Tommy noted the time as I left, part of our unspoken agreement to provide alibi support. Instead of the supplier, I drove straight home, parking 2 blocks away. I approached the house through the backyard, confirming Brad's car was in its usual hidden spot. Moving with military stealth, I entered through the kitchen door. The basement was soundproofed enough that Sarah and Brad remained oblivious. I went to the gas stove first, opening all 4 burner valves without lighting them. The hiss of the gas was a quiet promise. I methodically opened every gas appliance in the house, the oven, the water heater pilot light, creating maximum gas accumulation. I closed all windows and interior doors to concentrate the gas in the main living areas. Years of demolitions training guided my every move as I calculated dispersion rates and optimal saturation time. The house, my home, was now a trap. From my bedroom, I retrieved the flashbang and carefully positioned it on the kitchen counter with a long rope tied to the pin. I extended the rope through the back door, across the yard, and behind the garden shed. The setup was professional. No fingerprints, no evidence of deliberate placement, designed to look like a gas leak met an unfortunate ignition source. The only thing missing was the final act. After waiting exactly 12 minutes for proper gas saturation, I pulled the rope from my concealed position. The explosion was tremendous. A concussive roar that blew out windows, collapsed the kitchen wall inward, and immediately engulfed the main floor in flames. The basement, where Sarah and Brad were trapped, became a furnace within minutes. I sprinted to my car and drove directly to the auto parts supplier, actually purchasing the items I claimed to need. I returned to the warehouse at 3:45 p.m., showing Dave and Tommy my purchase receipt and asking for help installing the parts. My demeanor was completely normal, focused on work tasks and engaging in casual conversation. My alibi was now ironclad. At 4:30 p.m., my phone rang. The caller ID showed the fire department. Acting confused and increasingly frantic, I took the call in front of my co-workers. The fire chief informed me that my house had suffered a severe explosion and fire, and I needed to come immediately. My performance was Oscar-worthy. Shock, denial, desperate questions about Sarah's safety, and growing horror as reality seemed to sink in. Dave and Tommy insisted on driving me to the scene, where I found my house completely engulfed in flames. I broke down convincingly, screaming Sarah's name and attempting to run toward the burning structure before firefighters restrained me. Neighbors who gathered to watch the tragedy comforted me, and my grief appeared absolutely genuine to everyone present. The fire took 3 hours to fully extinguish. When investigators recovered 2 bodies from the basement, my reaction was perfect. Overwhelming shock that Sarah had been home. I thought she was shopping. Confusion about the unidentified second victim, and growing suspicious rage as the implications became clear. My story was simple, believable, and perfectly timed. Detective Rodriguez and his partner, Detective Reed, arrived at the scene within an hour of the fire being contained. Rodriguez, a 15-year veteran of the homicide unit, immediately noted several suspicious elements: the intensity of the explosion, the location of the bodies in the basement, and my convenient absence during the incident. He had seen this before. When a spouse dies in a house fire under these circumstances, the surviving partner is usually involved. The investigation began aggressively. Rodriguez interviewed neighbors, learning about my work schedule, my relationship with Sarah, and any signs of marital trouble. Most described us as a loving couple trying to start a family, but Mrs. Watson from next door mentioned seeing Brad's car in the area frequently when I was at work. This discovery shifted the investigation toward a potential motive. I submitted to questioning voluntarily, accompanied by a lawyer, another detail that raised Rodriguez's suspicions. During the interrogation, I maintained my story perfectly. I was at work, ran an errand to the parts supplier, and returned to find my world destroyed. I showed them the receipt, provided the exact timeline, and expressed confused anguish about finding 2 bodies. When confronted about Brad's identity and possible relationship with Sarah, I claimed ignorance, but suggested they investigate thoroughly. The technical investigation ran parallel to the interrogation. Fire marshals examined the blast pattern and determined the explosion originated in the kitchen area. Gas company records showed no reported leaks. The medical examiner's findings indicated both victims died from smoke inhalation and burns. The flashbang remnants were dismissed as debris. Rodriguez's case began to weaken when he interviewed my co-workers. Dave and Tommy provided detailed testimony about my presence at the warehouse, my normal demeanor, my errand, and my shocked reaction to the phone call. The timeline they provided gave me a solid alibi during the estimated time of the explosion. The breakthrough came when investigators recovered Sarah's phone and laptop from a fireproof safe. The devices revealed extensive text messages and emails with Brad, documenting their affair in explicit detail. The evidence painted a clear picture. Sarah and Brad were having an affair, meeting while I was at work, and died tragically in an accidental gas explosion. After 2 weeks, Rodriguez sat across from me one final time. He presented all the evidence: the affair, the timeline, the technical findings, and the witness statements. He looked me directly in the eye and admitted that while his instincts told him I was involved, there was no physical evidence of murder and a compelling case for accidental death. "Your wife was cheating on you," Rodriguez stated bluntly. "She and Brad were in your basement when a gas leak caused an explosion that killed them both. You were at work with multiple witnesses. The physical evidence supports accidental death. I can't prove otherwise, and the DA won't prosecute without evidence." My response was measured and perfect. Grief over my wife's death, betrayal about her affair, and relief that the truth had come out. I thanked Rodriguez for his thoroughness and expressed hope that I could eventually find peace and move forward with my life. The case was officially closed. 6 months later, I've relocated to a different city and found work at a larger warehouse with better pay. The insurance settlements allowed me to start fresh, free from the memories and associations of my former life. I've rented a small apartment and begun the process of rebuilding my identity as a widowed veteran rather than a betrayed husband. The nightmares that plagued me immediately after the fire have mostly subsided. Sometimes I dream about Sarah, not the woman who betrayed me, but the woman I fell in love with years earlier. I've made peace with the fact that both versions of her existed and that my love for one didn't negate my justified anger toward the other. I've started dating casually, meeting women who know only that I'm a veteran whose wife died in a house fire. I'm honest about my grief and my slow process of healing, which most find admirable rather than suspicious. The story I tell of a man rebuilding after tragic loss resonates with people and has actually enhanced my dating prospects rather than hindering them. Dave and Tommy occasionally call to check on me. They know they provided alibi for something more significant than a simple divorce, but they've never pressed for details. The brotherhood of veterans includes respecting each other's methods of handling betrayal, and they're satisfied that I handled my situation with the honor and precision expected of a soldier. On quiet evenings, I reflect on the choices I made and feel no regret. Sarah chose to betray our marriage vows and our plans for a family. Brad chose to pursue a married woman in her own home. Both made decisions that disrespected my service to my country and my devotion to my wife. In my mind, they received the consequences their choices deserved. As I settle into my new life, I carry with me a hard-earned wisdom that some betrayals are so complete they can only be answered with permanent solutions, and that justice sometimes requires a soldier's precision rather than a court's deliberation. I served my country honorably in war, and I believe I served my own honor equally well at home. The perfect accident gave me the perfect fresh start, and I am finally at peace. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.